Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Welcome to the first Convert-sations via Zoom. Today we will have Brother Malik and Ustadh Ubaydullah Evans. They're going to kind of just share their stories, and we'll have a Q&A, and it'll just be kind of conversation style, but then it'll be Q&A. And so I'll do a quick introduction of Brother Malik. He is one of the co-founders of Midtown Mosque, of Amin, and he's also a teacher, educator, and he works in the Muslim community and in the Memphis community. And Ustadh Ubaydullah Evans is the scholar in residence at ADEM, the American Learning Institute for Muslims, which they're having their summer program, which will be starting this weekend. So I'm just going to say this is the last day to register for the virtual summer program. So I really recommend you guys to go to take part in it. There's going to be a lot of classes, a lot of different teachers. So I really recommend doing that. So we can get started with Brother Malik, first of all.
All right, assalamu alaikum, everybody. I'm going to talk before Ubaydullah comes on, inshallah. He should be here in a moment. What we wanted to talk about, so Convert-sations is a conversation we have monthly about issues that are related to converts to Islam. Converts, particularly indigenous converts, it's a very unique experience. And post 1970, it gets a little bit more unique because prior to that, 1970, 70% of the Muslims in the United States were indigenous people. After that, after the 65 Immigration Act, you get a large influx of people who aren't from indigenous land. Can you please turn your mic off? So what we want to do is have a conversation about the conversion experience. We often don't get to hear about people's conversions, and we just assume that, people have been Muslim for a long time, like they don't have a story prior to. Particularly with now, we have, a high percentage of people who convert, who leave the community. I don't necessarily know that if you leave the deen, it's estimated up to 70%. So we want to begin to have conversations about that and how we can go about kind of lowering this number, or how can we create a more inclusive community. So Amin was created as a place for converts, and as we've went, so it's been around for about 8 years. We took a hiatus for a little while. It was created for converts to Islam, and then subsequently we learned that a lot of second generation has some of the same issues that converts have. And what we really try to do is kind of create a social bedding for people to flourish as a Muslim. Often the most challenging thing for people is to replace their social life once they become Muslim. Normally, Tawheed, the theology of Islam is very simple. People can readily, accept that. But how do I change, my social setting? How do I get in morally safe environments? Is what Amin was created for that. We have, alhamdulillah, we have a masjid here in Midtown, so people can get a familiar experience with being Muslim in terms of their religious practice, their worship service. But we notice that outside of that, like outside of, Jummah, outside of the salats, like what do people do? And people kind of express to us that the challenge is for them socially. Like, what do I do now? If I want to go and just socialize with people, if I want to play, one thing we have, sisters love to play board games. We have, brothers to get together and talk and just talk about how do we become better men. You need a space to do that. And since some of those conversations are with men who aren't, Muslim, who may be a little apprehensive to come to the masjid, but there are conversations we still have to have. How are we going to give dawah? How do we bring people in? How do we keep people and do things socially that are morally safe, but they're not appropriate to do in the masjid? We don't want the masjid to become Walmart where you get all things you need It's not, you're there to worship Allah, beg Allah, and learn about Allah and His Prophet, not to necessarily have fun. Or even to, you there, you socialize with the people, but that's not the primary purpose of it. So Amin was created to handle that social part of life. As one of our young people understand by Ali Radi Anhu, that there's nothing hurts a good soul and a good heart more than to live amongst people who don't understand it. It's harmful to people. Like when you become Muslim and you try to live a more righteous existence, or you're on the path where you're seeking to live a more righteous life, it's harmful to be around people who won't allow that to grow, to allow that to blossom. So that's why Amin was created. So tonight we want to talk about conversion stories, and I guess Ubaydullah was going to start. I was going to start him off with his conversion. But I would like, if anybody has any questions as we go along, I know Sabria just put it in the chat. If anybody has any questions, feel free to send the questions in, so that we can get to those and any other conversation topics people have. So I wanted to start with my own kind of conversion story. I, like a lot of people, I grew up, I read Malcolm X when I was in 8th grade. Then I went to college. I read Malcolm X again. And then while I was there, I had a Quran. A friend of mine was given some material about Islam. And he was leaving the university. So the young lady who gave him the material asked, could I get her material back? It was called the Muslim Christian Dialogue. And so I got the material back, and I'm reading it before I could give it back to her. I'm reading it, and I was like, this is it, right? This is it. I knew about Islam, and I had an interest in becoming Muslim. I just didn't really know the ins and outs of what Muslims believed. I knew coming from Detroit, to be Muslim meant you had to get yourself morally correct, and you were expected to give back to the neighborhood. You were expected to, better yourself and then give back to the community. So I read the stuff, I read it and I give it back to the young lady. Then I go home for the summer and I read a biography of the Prophet ﷺ by Karen Armstrong, because I didn't want to read a Muslim's version of a biography of the Prophet ﷺ. I wanted to kind of get a non-biased opinion, someone who wasn't Muslim, so it would be non-biased. So I read it and I decide in my parents' basement that I'm just going to become Muslim. And that was it. Over the summer, I just decided to become Muslim. I didn't go to a masjid and take Shahada. I took Shahada in my basement with the two angels, I guess. And subsequently, I go back to school. I learned more, alhamdulillah. Actually, I eventually later took Shahada with a brother who learned Islam through me. And I told him, I never took Shahada, so I probably should do this. So I ended up taking Shahada with him. And then the young lady whose stuff it was actually married her. And 23 years later, that young lady on the screen named Sabria has come out of it. So, and we have 5 other kids. So, alhamdulillah, it's been a good ride. But it's an up and down. As the Prophet ﷺ said, Iman goes up and down. It's been an up and down kind of story here, much like most converts. I mean, you struggle, and I'm blessed. I think I've had the company of a mentor. Imam Zaid Shakir has been a mentor to us, not just to us as a family, and then as it goes on, communally. Alhamdulillah, we've a few people from his community, Imam Zaid led in New Haven, have moved here. Imam Hamza, Abdul Malik, we started Midtown together. He grew up in Imam Zaid's community. So, and Imam Zaid he's our sheikh. What we should do, community, what we should be doing. So I've been blessed in that regard. Most converts don't have, that's not their experience. Most converts, it's a pretty lonely experience. I remember when we became Muslim, and then we would go to Eid, things like that. You had this kind of loneliness. And our good brother Ubaydullah is here now, right on that Chicago time. Alhamdulillah.
Leave it to my brother to make fun of me. I'm coming over just to spend time.
Man, it's good to see you, man.
Alhamdulillah, it's good to be seen. I cannot view. You know what I'm saying? These days.
Hey, you on the side?
Yeah, I said a bit like your thing is sideways.
Oh, okay. Let me fix it.
Thank you.
Let me see. Hold on a second. Oh, wait, hold on.
The Muslim Christian dialogue was the package, and the book was called as a biography of the Prophet ﷺ by Karen Armstrong.
Okay.
I was just answering the question. Bismillah, man. Good to see you, man. Oh, he's frozen. Is he frozen?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Okay. So.
Oh, here he is.
All right.
You're good.
Hey man, you froze it again, man.
There we go. Now we should be good. We should be good.
Inshallah. All right, so you good, man. So what I was telling people about my own conversion story. So I would like to hear how Ubaydullah Evans comes to Deen.
Oh man, you know, the thing about it, I've told the story so many different ways. You know, the story has so many elements to it. You know, my wife jokes with me every time you tell the story of your conversion, you tell it a different way. And you know, she jokes like as an indication that, well, like what I'm saying isn't true, like I'm lying. But I keep telling, I said, no, actually all of them are true. It just depends on what aspect of my conversion story I choose to highlight. So you really did have this love of Malcolm. You know, I encountered the movie Malcolm X when I was about 10, and the movie had such a profound impact on me that after watching the movie, I told my mother, whatever he is, I'm that, right? I felt like Denzel Washington played that role so well that, you know, for a long time, I thought Denzel Washington was Malcolm X. You know, when I would see him in other pictures, but I was like, wait a minute, Malcolm X is a pilot? You know what I mean? Malcolm X is a lawyer? Malcolm X is talking about the Pelican Brief? You know, I thought Denzel Washington was Malcolm X. Like I was only 10 years old. But that was kind of like an initial interest in Islam that faded away. Even before that, I was in second grade. We had to portray a figure in Black history. And we had to dress like the person, and we had to come in and give a short 4 or 5 minute address. And I chose Elijah Muhammad. In second grade, I chose Elijah Muhammad, and my grandmother made me a special fez and put a crescent and a 5-pointed star on it. And then she took some reading glasses that she had, took the lenses out, and I wore those, and I pretended like I was Elijah Muhammad. And I still remember reading a book that I checked out from the school library about Elijah Muhammad, and also saying, I'm interested in this. So that was a part of the story. I rediscovered Malcolm's biography in print at maybe the age of 15. That was a part of it. Part of it was certainly hip hop. I had a very diverse palette, as you could say, in terms of the music that I enjoyed. So a lot of the cats that I was listening to, you know, they were making Islamic references, whether that was Wu-Tang making a reference to the 5% nations of gods and earths, whether it was De La Soul making a reference to the Ansar Allah community, Imam Malik and Ustadh community, whether it was Yasin Bey, formerly known as Mos Def, making references to Sunni Islam, all of that was, a part, whether it was Nas making references to the Quran, all of that was a part of my, kind of, I guess, my formative years, so as to speak, as somebody exploring, Islam. Then you had a real street element. I grew up on both sides of my family, and in the area that I lived in was controlled by a street organization called the Blackstone Rangers. Blackstone Ranger fear no danger. You know what I mean? That's how we grew up like that on both sides of my family. And now, oddly enough, I was always close. It was in my neighborhood, all of my friends, all of their older brothers, but I was kind of seen as, no boasting. I was in the neighborhood, but I was always highly regarded for my ability to think and for my ability to speak. So I always, I was regarded kind of like as the nerd of the neighborhood. And my mother didn't make it any better, man. She used to dress me in cable knit sweaters and dockers, and you know what I mean? So
not the doc.
People used to see me with my guys, man, and say, dude is like the Carlton Banks of the hood. You know what I'm saying? Dude is like the Carlton Banks of the neighborhood. But it was real cool because I had my little space among people that I respected, that had real street credibility, people that was in the street getting it in. I had a place of esteem with them that offered me some insulation. Like I didn't have to really get down like that because I was plugged like that. I was connected like that. Right. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And there was mutual love and affection. And actually, wallahi, the street people that I grew up around, they gave me a space where I could be myself and pursue what interested me. You know what I'm saying? Right. But in the literature of that street organization, you have lots of references to Islam, lots of references to Allah. In Memphis, I don't think you have Blackstone Rangers, but you have Vice Lords. Yeah, you have Vice Lords.
Speaking with a brother who computed. Yeah, recently.
You have Vice Lords, which is of course in Chicago we got Rangers and we got Lords, but Lords, Rangers, these are all fruit from the same tree that we used to call the people nation. You understand? People that ran under a 5-pointed star. So it's kind of like we would hear references to Allah, to Islam, certain moral guidelines, not eating pork. People that I grew up with, we didn't put chemical hair straighteners in our hair. Hello? Things of that nature. This was just kind of like what was expected of you. That was a part of it. Then I had a friend that, I was in school with that was Nigerian. And it was actually his father. I mentioned this part last because it was kind of the tipping point. It was his father, me inquiring about Islam because of all of that inspiration, all of that motivation. And his father actually told me about Islam. I was at the end of my junior year in high school, and I decided to embrace Islam. And it was something that, wallahi, man, my whole neighborhood was proud of me. My whole neighborhood was proud of me. And the street guys were the proudest of me. They put their arms around me and said, we kind of got one foot on the deal, another foot on the banana peel. The street kind of more science, streets, Islam kind of lingo, but you really taking it all the way there. Yeah. And I embraced Islam. My younger sister embraced Islam. My grandmother embraced Islam. My grandfather embraced Islam. And 3 of my closest friends all embraced Islam.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. So it's funny you said the thing about hip hop, man. The first time I heard about Ramadan was in Biggie Small's song.
Yeah.
Quick, fast, like Ramadan. It's the
Ramadan.
phenomenon, dandada.
Dada. F Papa, you got
Yeah.
to call me Francis MH.
Exactly.
So Iron was told to shoot out, stay low, and keep firing.
Exactly. So yeah, it was real easy to have like Muslim lingo in the street. I mean, hip hop. You know, they said the religion of hip hop was Islam.
Yeah, for sure. You know, Dr. Suad Abdul Kabir has a book called Muslim Cool that really explores, I think, appreciably, you know, an appreciable exploration of the connection between hip hop and Islam. And there's another book by Dr. Suhail Balutzai, I believe called, I forget the title, but it's something crescent, flaming crescent, red crescent, that also explores that connection. You know what I'm saying?
So
yeah, that's there.
What advice would you have given yourself, knowing what you know today? What advice would you give yourself when you took Shahada?
That you're always going to be you. That you're always going to be you. I think many of us, upon embracing Islam, we have a strong desire for radical transformation, and I think that that's a good thing. You know, if we didn't have a strong desire for radical transformation, we probably wouldn't be interested, you know, in a religion that has a non-European sacred language, in a religion that completely reorients us literally and physically, right? The Kaaba is in Mecca. We probably wouldn't be interested in embracing a religion in which our co-religionists are non-Black. You know, you have to realize, man, that Black American Muslims are the only group of Black people that have to negotiate a major part of their identity with a non-Black group or a non-American group, you know, in terms of kind of their cultural frame of reference and point of origin, being outside of an American and U.S. context. That in and of itself, I've seen that go terribly wrong. People trying to negotiate issues of who they are, issues of identity, issues of understanding, issues of cultural authenticity with people that just cannot be expected to be sensitive to what we're looking for in Islam. But I think we're willing to do all of that, number one, because we find the message of Islam extremely compelling. We find the message of Islam, you know, extremely edifying. But number two, it's because I think we are people who arrived at some place in our lives where we were ready for something different. We were ready for something that challenged what I was accustomed to, challenged what I was used to. And that's why we embraced Islam. So what I would say to myself is that, yes, embrace that, but don't ever give up being who you are. Who you were before Islam is no accident. Who you were before Islam is what Allah made you. And you have to seek a means of refining the jewel that you were. Don't throw yourself out. Don't throw yourself in the trash, right? Just polish, refine, and grow into an authentically Muslim you, a deeply spiritual, deeply connected Muslim you. But any goal of becoming something other than yourself is a vain pursuit, because even if you win, you still lose.
Put some meat on that bone, man.
Meaning, like, if I gain some religious literacy, I you know, understand my faith, and I learn some Arabic, I learn some Arabic, and you know, I become familiar with the tradition. I learn some Islamic law, and I learn some hadith, but I'm really not me anymore. Those beautiful things that I just mentioned, Arabic and hadith and Quran and fiqh, and they don't really have a foundation upon which they can build me. It's like those things are being dumped into an empty hole. And this is why we see people, when we're in flight from ourselves, we see people that have been Muslim for 35, 40 years and their beards have grown more than they have. Because they maybe we can memorize some names, memorize some places, memorize some ayat, memorize some hadith, but those things are supposed to transform us, but they can't transform us if we're not in touch with us. We have to be in touch with who we are.
Right. What's been your biggest challenge, man, since you converted?
Biggest challenge since I converted? I'd have to say just trying to increase my knowledge, trying to increase my practice with my learning. I think, Muslims come from, we have a tradition. We have a tradition. And one of the liabilities of tradition is that you can get so into the performance of pronouncing the words correctly and saying the right scholars' names and quoting the right books and wearing the right thing that and because it's a tradition, people will esteem you for being a preserver of the tradition. When people see you in your knowledge or in your outward expression of Islam, people really esteem that, as we should. But if you're not careful, you can allow their praise for you to deceive you as to how much you've actually grown, what you've actually learned, who you actually are. So like for me, I always been I'm a hustler. I come from a long line.
Hey, you from Chicago, man. You from Chicago.
I come from a long line. Look, it's like one brother said, I come from a long and distinguished lines of pimps, players, and hustlers. So for me, the idea of manipulating a tradition, manipulating a discourse, learning to say some words and learning to put together some ideas so that people say, wow, that's impressive. I mean, that's not hard for me. But making sure that I'm personally working on myself in the way that I'm supposed to. That it's kind of like that scene in Malcolm X when he comes to Brother Baines, who was kind of a character Spike Lee invented, right? Yeah. And he says, hey, nigga, what's your angle? Hey, man, what's your angle? Yeah. And Brother Baines tells him what? I'm telling you God's words.
Not no hustle.
Ain't no hustle.
Yeah.
I'm telling you God's words. If somebody really understands kind of the culture of young black men, that scene is everything. That's one of the most powerful scenes in the movie for me, because in that, Malcolm's a hustler. He said, okay, so what angle is this? Okay, this is how we gonna get it. No. You got to suspend that kind of thinking. This is where you bring your whole self. This is where you try to show some sincerity. This ain't no hustle. This ain't where you shooting angles, trying to figure out, how to get some esteem and some love and some money. This is where you're trying to bring yourself to be, to die in the state in which God is pleased with you. And when you are a hustler, somebody that's naturally gifted at, shooting angles,
it's only natural. It's only natural.
Yeah.
It's only natural.
You got to remember that verse in the Quran where Allah says, they're not deceiving Allah. You only deceive yourself. You're not deceiving Allah. You only deceive yourself. So I would say, man, that's my biggest challenge is making sure that my practice stays in touch with my speech and what I'm talking about and how I can portray myself and make myself look, trying to make sure that I'm really that. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's real, because it can become a show and performance.
For sure.
And for many, because you're looking to be authentic.
For sure.
And there was a time when the practice was purely on the outward.
For sure.
How you look, make sure your pants are a certain length, but your heart could have been, really harsh with people.
For sure. No, yeah, of course, man. And I think that it's just remembering that internal dimension, of Islam, especially as a Black man. There's so much that we want from Islam that is outward. Like, I want dignity.
Yeah.
I want self-respect. I want, to be honest with you, I want a tradition that white folks can't control. That was no, seriously. I want a way of defining myself that is beyond the control of the dominant culture. Where they looking at me saying, it's what? It's halal. Yeah. I got a whole different means of defining myself. So we want some of that outward, but we can't forget that if it's not connected with an inward reality that's submissive to Allah, it's worth nothing. Maybe you've used your Islam for a kind of personal liberation, right? To get some space from, anti-Black racism and a certain bombardment against your sense of self. You've used Islam to fight against that. But what kind of person are you really?
That being said, so as a Black man in America, and you recognize that people like us were we were ready for this message. Like, we were looking for something. Right. What happened to Dawah?
Man, I think, to be honest with you, I think what happened to Dawah, we just, I think we lost a lot of our confidence, man. We lost a lot of our confidence, man. Islam used to be a message in Black communities that was considered to be so consonant with the idea of Black upliftment, it was so consonant with kind of a refined Blackness.
Yeah.
It was so consonant with the idea of being a truer, more authentic, purer Black man or woman, that when you opened your mouth to speak to somebody about Islam, you almost talk to them like, you not Muslim? Like
Where your Black card at? Give me your Black card.
Like, come on, man. You don't know anything about Islam? What? Yeah. And I think that gave a special kind of, there was a confidence. And I think that, and this is hard for me to admit, I don't like to admit this, but I think after the 1960s, when we began to embrace kind of Islamic orthodoxy, some of that confidence, because now we're encountering, an Islamic orthodoxy that, is often defined in another language. Its masters, the people that have mastered it, are perceived to be people from overseas. We're not, and then too, we lost a language. See, like, when you embrace a religion, man, you lose a language. You lose a language. So for instance, it's like when you go to church, what you're hearing is I'm talking about from the pulpit. You're hearing a generational tradition of Black spirituality.
Yeah.
With a sprinkling of Christian liturgy, I'm not gonna say a sprinkling, with a strong kind of syncretic mix with Christian liturgy, theology, scripture. But there's a lot of, non-spoken, non-verbal cues. There's a lot of even the way certain verses are interpreted, the way that they're deployed. That's not just coming from the gospel, but coming from a Black experience of the gospel.
Yes. Yes.
You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like embracing Islam in a new interpretive paradigm. We don't really have that. So when we get up, except for certain very gifted people like Hamza Abdul Malik and people like that. When we get up and we speak about Islam, we're really speaking Arabic that we're translating in our minds to English.
Yeah.
We're taking frameworks that we haven't completely imbibed, but we're trying to, because this is the way that we preserve Islamic authenticity.
Right.
But in that, some of that cultural, immediacy, some of that cultural pop.
It doesn't resonate.
It's not in our, and we have to be easy on ourselves. This is something that takes generations to develop.
Yeah.
This is something that takes generations to develop. So that when one of us stands up in the community and starts interpreting sort of Yusuf, and we talking about Yusuf being thrown into the well and Yusuf being brought out of the well and Yusuf entering, the house of the Aziz and Yusuf being sexually assaulted and Yusuf being put in prison. There's certain reality that we're connecting to that. It takes generations that are actually dealing with the story of Yusuf to develop that level of connectivity. We don't have that level of connectivity. This is the thing with Dawah. I think we know it. We kind of know that. I think our lack of enthusiasm for Dawah is an indication that we kind of know that we ain't all the way. It's not, we not, there's some work that we need to do internally. Now, that should not prevent us from calling people to Islam. Right. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Balligh anni walau ayah," tell people about me, even if it's just one verse. So we still have to call people to the truth. But I think that we in our communities are kind of like, we're a little bit ill at ease with kind of how we practice Islam and represent Islam. So we don't speak about Islam with the same confidence that we used to.
Which is interesting, man, because you grew up in the church, right?
I grew up, I was baptized at the age of 12, my own choosing, and I attended church regularly for years after that, my own choosing.
Yeah. See, I grew up in the church. I never was baptized, but it's amazing how much you learned in church. That you're right. It became kind of part of the Black experience that everybody in the neighborhood, me and Hamza were talking about. I was telling him in this neighborhood, everybody knows certain Bible stories. So we would walk down the street, and someone would say, like, if something happened, and they would say, "How you doing?" I say, "Man, you can't complain." "Yeah, man, could be like Job." You're right. Your life could be bad as Job. But it would always be a reference.
It was a part of the lived experience. Somebody, I remember, man, people that are not explicitly religious, but it's Thanksgiving, mom in there getting it together, and you say, what's your mama putting together? Oh, she feeding the multitude with 5 loaves and 2 fish. Feeding the multitude with 5 loaves and 2 fish. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was a connection there, man.
Yeah. Yeah. That was just part of it just became part of your existence, man. I had friends.
We're looking for that. We're looking for that.
No, we are. It's funny. Before we started, I was telling one of our daughters was asking about my neighborhood. And this is why I wanted to talk about our lives pre-becoming Muslim. A lot of what we learned, we didn't lose. I was telling her about a friend of mine who was a shooter, from Detroit. Yeah. And when he would ride by a church, he would turn the radio down.
Yeah. No, that was a part of a lived experience, man. That was a part of a lived experience. Lee, just give me 1 second. I'm gonna come right back. Give me 1 sec.
It's all good, man. It's all good.
I'm coming back. All
right. So while we wait, wanted to, Sabria, if you could talk about the program on the 20th.
Yes. Okay. So we have a couple of programs coming up. Let me pull it up here. For women, we're having an event that we're bringing back that we used to do at Amin, called Views from Another Sister's Shoes. And so we'll be talking this week. Hold Hold on, let me pull it up here. I don't know how it's going to show, but here's the flyer. Can everyone see that? Yes.
No.
You can't see it?
No.
Okay. Okay, let me see.
We can see it. It's good.
Okay. I guess it was just a lag. But yeah, so this week we'll be talking about George Floyd called all mothers when he called for his mother. So we'll be having a discussion on race. It'll be kind of open discussion, of course, via Zoom, but it's open for any women that want to come share stories, kind of have different conversations, giving their perspectives. We hope that it's like a diverse group of people so that we can listen and hear like another person's perspectives. And then we'll have other topics coming up. If anybody is interested in it, and they're interested in like a certain topic, let me know, and then you can like message me here, and then we'll try to bring in. We're coming up with a few other topics. We'll put it. Sorry, this like view on my laptop is like really weird, but
it's fine. It's good.
Okay, and then I'll show you guys the website. Then we just have a new website thanks to some of our team members. Samaya, I think, is on here. Irfan.
And Emma, yeah.
Amal and Emma, yeah. And so here's the website. It's www.aminusa.org. So if you want to find out different events that are going on or how to donate, then you can check there. And Ustadh Ubaydullah is back, so we'll go back. But of course, like I said, if anyone has any questions, then you can send them here. You can send them to me, or you can just post them in the chat. We're gonna have a conversation. Subscribe to the newsletter. Let me find out, and I'll post it. But Ustadh Ubaydullah, I think, is back, so we can keep going.
So just to fill everybody in with what I mean is the organization created, to help people ease their transition into becoming Muslim, but then also for second generation who want to come back, like rekindle their faith, inshallah. So, and for generally people who just want to be in morally safe environments, which is a big test for us as a community. As the Prophet ﷺ said, the world is a prison for the believers. And a lot of our challenges are how to have a social life that is morally safe. And so, that's what we try to stay in our lane, and what we focus on is that. So Ustadh Ubaydullah is back, and I had another quick question for you, man.
Yeah.
What is the community? How does the community, as a convert who travels, different communities, how do you think the Muslim community looks at converts?
Attitudes vary, man. I think for some people, quite frankly, converts are like mascots. It's kind of like, we derive a great deal of energy through knowing that somebody consciously chose our tradition, our faith as an adult. We get a great deal of energy from that. And I think that's natural. You grow in your appreciation for what you have when you see other people valuing what you have. I think converts represent that. At the same time, the reason I said mascot is because nobody really takes seriously the guy in the suit jumping around as the real players are playing the game. It's even though one could argue that the mascot plays an important role, in terms of energizing the players, energizing the fans. But in terms of being taken seriously, a mascot is not taken very seriously. And I think converts are not taken very seriously in some Muslim communities, in the sense that, are we really looking into ways to, number one, learn from these individuals, man? We do a lot, we do a terrible job as a Muslim community at retaining our talent, at benefiting from our talent.
Right.
Right. So somebody coming in as a convert Muslim, yes, they don't know a lot about Islam. Mm-hmm. And that certainly presents certain challenges. But they also don't know a lot about Islam. That presents certain opportunities as well. Because there's certain things that we're accustomed to tradition doing all of our work for us. We're accustomed to, it's almost like, it's kind of like when I speak to a non-Muslim audience. Now, when I'm speaking to a non-Muslim audience, I feel pressure because I have to really say something that's meaningful. And if what I'm saying isn't meaningful, they won't be impacted by it. Whereas with a Muslim audience, if I cite certain sources, if I quote certain people, even if it's not resonant, they're gonna pretend like it is. Mm. You see, it's like I just said Imam Ghazali. You gotta feel that, right? Yeah. So I think a convert without all of that training, by training I mean kind of their reactions are not trained yet. Mm. It would be interesting to ask them, how does this feel to you? How does this sound to you? How does this look to you? Now, it doesn't mean that they can change the faith. Nor do I think they want to change the faith. But I do think it's an opportunity for us to see ourselves through a new set of eyes. You know what I'm saying? But if you don't take them seriously, if you just look at converts as, be quiet, sit over there, let me teach you Fatiha, and go sit in the corner, then you won't get that. The other thing is, I think very few people understand how difficult it can be, to convert to a new faith. I mean, literally, setting aside all of your, not all, but a significant portion of what shaped your normative experience, what shaped normalcy for you. You have altered that in some way. You've changed that in some way for the sake of this faith. And I think very few people take seriously like what that means. What does that change entail? And instead of just, giving people instructions, maybe asking them what they're experiencing and how we could be of service is a much better way to approach that.
Yeah, and in that, and this is where, I think converts have the duty and responsibility to take care of other people who we know what they're going through, and not expect the community to do something that's not their experience. And we can blame, it's easy to blame the community for not providing, what people need, but converts have that responsibility ourselves as well.
I agree. I agree.
For a long period, like when do you transcend being the convert? You know what I mean? Like when do you not the rookie anymore?
Oh, I can tell you when, man. Usually a convert is not the rookie when they get married. That's for a convert Muslim. Now, by the way, this is some people haven't been able to get married. Maybe they want to get married. So I'm not saying that people who haven't been able to get married are in any way deficient or inadequate in their commitment. No way. I'm not saying that. But you do see the level of engagement with Islam change when a person marries someone that's also practicing Islam. Everything goes, as a convert, you really see what's meant by marriage is half of your religion.
Right.
Because it becomes real. Now you have this other person that's also practicing Islam that's with you all the time. Whereas before, you Muslim, but you back with your old partners, or you Muslim and you with your family, and
you're on the backsliding program a little bit. Yeah.
A little bit. Uncle Gerald say, let's slide onto the back porch and put one in, what I'm saying? When you married, it's like, okay, And I think that also for the families of converts, when a person marries a Muslim, it's like, oh, so he's serious about this. You know what I'm saying? This ain't just a passing phase or a fad. This is he's serious.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. There's some accountability there.
Yeah, there's some accountability there.
Definitely some accountability there.
Yeah.
Your grandmother became Muslim.
Yes.
All right, man. Give us that.
Well, my grandmother, believe it or not, man, my grandmother grew up as a Qadiani, as an Ahmadi. She was a part of the Muslim movement called the Ahmadiyya.
Yeah, the Ahmadiyya.
My grandmother grew up as a member of the Ahmadiyya community, and her father, you know, I need to get in touch with Skip Gates, man, and do my, you know, for real, man, because you know my great grandfather, my mother's grandfather, when he arrived in Chicago from the U.S. Virgin Islands, his surname was Muhammad. My grandmother's maiden name is Muhammad. Yeah, my grandmother's maiden name was Muhammad. And yeah, my grandmother's maiden name was Muhammad. And when he got to Chicago, the only community he could find practicing, these are my theories, anything that even resembled Sunni Islam was the Ahmadiyya community.
Yeah.
And so my grandmother was raised in an Ahmadi community. And and this is why we have to be very careful as, you know, people that are concerned about our Muslim families. By the time my grandmother was of age, that was just a part of her past. That wasn't, you know, it was just, you know, that was just something that, you know, was a part of her past. You know, she married, you know, a Black American, you know, really my grandfather, my mother's father, a straight up hustler. And my mother's father was from Detroit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it was legit.
Hey, stink pink Gators. My Detroit players.
My Detroit players.
You know, he was my grandfather was a tough dude. You know, he was a tough dude. And you know, and my mother wasn't raised, you know, with any particular religion, you know, just Christmas, Easter, you know, just, you know, going to church with friends, kind of, you know, the religion of being a good person, right? So my conversion was a conversion. It wasn't like, well, I was already Muslim or no. I discovered Islam completely on my own, but you know, with the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when I started discovering Islam, my grandmother started telling me, you know, I grew up like that. I'm like, for real? She's like, yeah. And so that's how that became something that me and my grandmother bonded over. She was like, you know, and so as I started learning more about Islam, she would say, everything you learn about Islam, teach me. And so I would come I live with my grandmother. So anything I learned about Deen, like I would teach my grandmother. And you know, she was kind of like real cool, kind of like just listening, you know, never really taking like an active interest in the faith, but just kind of listening. And then, you know, one day I was about to pray at Isha. I had to be a senior. I was a senior in high school. My grandmother came into the basement with her hijab on, made a little salat with me. And from then it was on and cracking. You know, it was on and cracking. Now, you know, and so, you know, it was on and cracking, man.
Do you think that kind of communal conversion how do we restart that kind of communal conversion?
You know, honestly, man, you know, and I don't want any non-Black brothers and sisters to take exception to what I'm saying. And that's why I preface my statement. And I don't preface my statement out of regards for their fragility or whatever the modern, no, man, these are my brothers and my sisters. And we've shared deep love and deep affection for each other. I'm talking about a lot of non-Black Muslims that I've been in community with for years, white Muslims that I've been in community with for years, Daisies, Arabs. So the disclaimer that I'm giving, because I know like right now, mashallah, we're in a time of black radicalism, which is alhamdulillah. But I want people to know the disclaimer I'm giving is not based on theories. It's based on real human connections that I have with real people that I love.
Right.
This ain't based on no theories, man. We talking about real non-black Muslims that I love. And I would, because I love them, I would shudder at the idea of offending them because I love them. But so I don't mean to offend them. I say all of that to say I don't mean to offend them. But I do think we need some, maybe not physical space, but we need some interpretive, we need some room we need some room even to be wrong. We need some room even if you want that kind of communal conversion.
Yeah.
We need some room to express a voice.
Interpretive control.
Right. We need some interpretive control. We need some room to express a voice. And we need, our scholars, people like Sheikh Hamza Abdul Malik, people like Amin Muhammad, people like Imam Suleiman Hamid, people like Abdullah bin Hamid Ali. I know some people don't like Sheikh Abdullah, but people like, Dr. Bilal Ware, people like Sheikh Mohammed Mendez.
Indigenous experience.
What's that?
Indigenous experience.
We need those people to create a broad perimeter to make sure that us expressing our voice stays inside the boundary of what Allah was permissible.
Yeah.
We don't want to do nothing haram and say, well, it's a black thing. That ain't what I'm talking about. Yeah, that's not ever going to be valid. But we need a very generous understanding of what we can do. And once we get some confidence and some comfort with ourselves and we begin to practice Islam in that, like, in a way that we're not walking in the shadow, don't mean I spent almost, I spent years of my life trying to, learn the Arabic language, trying to study Islamic law at Al-Azhar University, living in deserts, eating dust. I mean, I spent years of my life trying to, learn this tradition. So the idea that I wouldn't value it is, of course I value it.
Right.
Of course I value it. But we need to be able to practice deen in a way that we're not walking in the shadows. By that I mean regular Muslim men and women can insert their creativity, their lived experiences, their ideas into their Islamic practice, and then have a very broadly learned, generous and kind group and cadre of scholars, men and women, that they can rely on to guide them, but not destroy that creative impulse that leads to owning Islam.
Yeah.
You see, we need, like, when you talk about ownership of this religion, it takes a certain creative impulse that you trust to be able to, like, take full ownership of this religion. And if you're always walking in the shadows, thinking about, what the tradition, the sheikh, and you're never gonna create that kind of momentum that leads to your grandmama being able to identify with this.
Right. It's funny that you say so. Since you're in Chicago with Dr. Omar, we as an organization, we were reading Islam and the Cultural Imperative, and how you have to create an expression that is easy for people to identify with. It's not difficult for people to identify with it.
If you want, and this is the thing, you have, and this is what I think a lot of our people don't understand. The people on this call right now are very special people, man. Really, I mean, I'm talking about you. I'm talking about Sister Letitia. I'm talking about anybody else tuning in that's a convert, because when you look at the Muhajirun and the Ansar, right? These two groups, right? You look at the Seerah, you look at the prophetic biography, you have these two groups. You have the Muhajirun, you have the Ansar. You know why we recognize them the way we do? Is because these are those unique people that even when Islam didn't have a position societally, they recognized its salvific message. That's why they're special. And that's who and that's the people who have converted now, that's who we are. People that even going to a masjid where I don't really feel the cultural connectivity, I know that this is true. And I'm down. Yeah. That is never going to be a formula for mass conversion. That you'll get exceptional people.
Yeah.
You'll get exceptional people who will embrace Islam. But if you want communal conversion, it don't happen like you gotta have, it's gotta be something that people can culturally sink their teeth into. If you want it to be communal. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no. And that was the part, that was why, it was created, in the sense that we don't want this survival of the fittest religion. The only people who can maintain deen are the people who are the strongest. Exactly. You don't have deen then.
See, that's what I'm talking about. When you don't have that connectivity that Amin is trying to produce, the only people that will convert to this religion will be people that are saints. Not saying that we're saints, but people that have that exclusive interest in saving their souls.
Right.
And they're prepared to do whatever, however foreign it seems, however unusual, I'm prepared to do whatever to save my soul. That would never be a formula for just the brother in the street. Nah, it's gonna be hey, Leak, I hate to stop out, but I actually had a hard stop at 8 o'clock.
Hey, so there was a question that if you don't answer this question, I'm gonna get the business later. So
I don't want that to happen.
For the sake of your brother.
I'm gonna answer this question for the sake of my brother.
Hey, and tell your wife salams for me. All right, Sabria, go ahead.
Okay, so we had a question about thoughts on changing your given name versus keeping it when you convert.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I think it depends on the person. Some people want to mark kind of the end of one period of their life, of their life, and the beginning of another. And a name change is a way of doing that. A name change is a way of saying, okay, that part of my life has ended and this is a new beginning. And I think for those people, we shouldn't take that from them. We shouldn't make them feel ashamed of that, Also, too, for some people, it is just about adding something to my identity. I still have no problem being referred to as Will. My family still calls me Will. My sister calls me Will. My mother calls me Will. All of my uncles call me Lil Will. And my father's name is Will too. One time, one of my aunts sent a Christmas gift to the house for my son. She didn't even write the boy's name. She wrote Baby Lil Will. It said Baby Lil Will. This is for Baby Lil Will.
Yeah.
So I don't have a problem with that. But Ubaydullah is also a part of who I am. I feel very connected to Ubaydullah. I am, I'm Will, and I'm also Ubaydullah. And I feel like I need those. I need those settings where I'm known as Will.
Yeah.
I need to see people I grew up with, that I played ball with growing up. That say, "Oh, hey Will, what's up?" Yeah. And I also need people within my community to say, "Assalamu alaikum, Ubay." Like for me, it's about, I need that.
Yeah.
I need that. So I think everybody has to determine that for themselves. But I know for me, you can't take my Will and you cannot take my Ubaydullah. I need them both. I need them both.
Nah, man. Man. Thank you very much, brother. And
appreciate that.
Man,
anytime you call, anytime Amin calls, hey man, I'm at your service. If I've said anything that offended anybody, that message was not the fault of Amin. Amin does not take responsibility for the message of this guest. of me to not take responsibility for the words, for the thoughts and opinions of this guest. Those thoughts were my own. You know what I'm saying? So forgive me, inshallah. I look forward to seeing you soon.
Hey, you too, man. Inshallah. I'll rap with you this weekend, inshallah.
Inshallah. Looking forward to it, inshallah.
All right, bro. Assalamu
alaikum.
Okay, so I wanted to thank everybody, for coming out, inshallah. We plan on doing this monthly, this conversation where we talk about things that are, really pressing for converts, the things that affect our lives. And inshallah, once all the, maybe the quarantining is over, inshallah, we'll get a space, we'll have a space to be able to interface with each other more and do things that are socially enjoyable again. To kind of go over the point of the conversation is, as converts to Islam or people who will be dealing with converts, it's good to know what are issues important to us and what will help us be better Muslims. So that's the point of conversation. Sorry if we couldn't get to everybody's question. Really apologize about that. If everybody can remember this Sunday, the Views from Another Sister's Shoes that Sabria had mentioned earlier, that's concerning looking at racism through the lens of, women's lens, mother's lens, sister's lens, auntie's lens, that come from different perspectives. Inshallah, it would be a different, a diverse crowd that'll bring their experiences to, alhamdulillah, we're, in Memphis and virtually you can be anywhere. We have a community that's really diverse and who sees what's happening from different angles. Some of our people, they're from America, some aren't. Some who are white, some who are black, some who are, Latino, some who are Native American. So we all bring a different perspective. And so the Views from Another Sister's Shoes allows all of that to come together in dialogue and in understanding and seeing things from, another person's lens. So inshallah, unless there's something else, Sabria?
No, I think we should close out with dua now.
Can you email the date? Okay.
We got it. We're keeping them.
Okay, you'll email them out? Okay, inshallah. Any other questions before we go?
So for the question of subscribing to the website, if you're in the homepage and you scroll all the way down, there's a strip that says "Be Inspired," and you can put your name and your email there and subscribe.
Thank you. Also on the website, we have a live chat, someone who can respond to you immediately if there's a question. If somebody's interested in Islam or has a question about Islam, they may not be able to get the question answered right at that moment, but at least they can ask it and we can get, inshallah, we can get them the answer quickly. Inshallah, visit the website. Mashallah, we have, a good team of people who worked on the website, did a really good job. And inshallah, we look forward to, engaging with people as time goes on. Inshallah, we can all, do this virtual thing with each other until we can be with each other and be in presence with each other. So inshallah, we'll go ahead and end, and we'll end on Surah Al-Asr, as when the Sahabas would meet with each other when they would depart, they would recite Surah Al-Asr when they would depart from each other. So we'll do that. And inshallah, look forward to seeing everybody in the future. Inshallah. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim wal-Asr in salam fi khusr inna alladhina amanu wa aminu salihati wa tawasaw bil haqq wa tawasaw bis sabr. Inshallah, jazakumullah khairan. Inshallah, everybody have a good night. Assalamu alaikum.